All right, I'm coming back with something I'm just sort of working out right now. So let's start with that everything is consciousness. Everything. Everything is created by the mind. And on this planet, it's kind of hard. I think the journey, um, it seems like things are not within our control. It seems like there's a whole bunch of stuff that is just happening, and it's beyond our control, and we don't know how on earth we can change our minds to adjust the outer. So I'll come from a very personal perspective, and it relates to just anyone who's on sort of a more conscious journey of trying to make sense of the world and make sense of your own consciousness and everything. Um, so I'll just share with you the little awakenings. So I find all the answers they're already in your mind, all the clues, everything we're looking for, it's already here and it's already in our experience, in our memories. We have all the answers already. It's just a matter of when those memories come back and then looking at them and then you see them in a new light, like, so I'm getting lots of awakenings on memories which I'd sort of held up to be, like real holy cows, like, wow, what an amazing experience, or something that, I just decided I would believe in very strongly, and then seeing it from a new angle, like, oh, my perspective on it was actually holding me back. I'm adjusting the way I'm looking at these things. So it's adjusting within me. So my consciousness is shifting on how I'm viewing everything. So let me just give you an example. Back when I was about 12 years old, it's one of my very first pivotal experiences, when and I may have talked about this memory before, but I'll talk about it again because I'm seeing it from a new angle. When I was at school and 12 years old, and there was a girl in my year, and my sister told me that this girl, her father had passed away and had a heart attack in the shower, and the girl had tried to called an ambulance and tried to revive, CPR, her father, but he died. And my sister was a big teaser, and I didn't believe her, you know. And anyway, I went into school and I went to this girl. I just walked straight up to her, like, I just had sort of um, no walls up, and I just said, "Oh, did your father die of a heart attack in the shower, and you had to tried to revive him?" I had no concept that, that this could be a very hurtful thing to do. And she said yes and burst into tears. And, her friends came to comfort her. And I just there like, oh, a 12-year-old girl just realizing I had totally been incredibly insensitive, felt awful, and there was nothing I could do for her. I had to sort of leave her with her friends and everything. But I went into my own sort of very deep dark night of the soul at the age of 12, to contemplate, work out what am I going to do, because I just never wanted to harm anyone like that again. And I think I came to, the conclusion I came to was like, I really want to understand what suffering is and what abuse is. Um, but I remember my mindset was coming more from, like, being the Superman sort of person who would come along and help people who are suffering and who have been abused, because I'd had a good life, up till then. No suffering, no abuse. I mean, there was sort of some remnants from being adopted, but generally, my family upbringing, in the adoptive family was very good, very loving, had everything I needed, well fed, beautiful nature, like everything, kind family. And so, yeah, so my mindset was like, but I'm going to fix them. I'm going to save all of these poor little, abused kids. And so, I followed that path, I followed that path, becoming a teacher, teaching kids, from who were experiencing suffering for many different reasons, from either abuse at home or their own mental health issues or whatever. And it sort of turned out that, my path took me, from a very young age, once I'd sort of left home, to, into a lot of suffering experiences and a lot of abuse experiences. So I ended up experiencing like a lot of suffering, to the point where, it really took me to the brink. And yeah, so, I'm talking, when I say the brink, a huge turning point where it was like, I can't do this anymore, I can't take another bit, because it would have killed me, it was killing me psychologically, and it was killing me so much psychologically that my body was, my soul, I was ready to leave, like I just couldn't cope with life anymore, and my body was breaking down, physically, and yeah, it was like make or break, and I had to choose life, and I did. So here I am. And and since that turning point, it has been, this long journey of healing the mind, and so now I'm at another stage which I'd like to share with you. So, I'm just thinking about this, the question of like, we see horrible things happening in the world. We see children and anyone, people, just innocent people being murdered in Gaza. We see people being shot in the streets in America. We see, Ukrainian people, with a war being conducted against them. We see Russian soldiers being drafted into a war and just being used as like lumps of meat, they're just disposable lumps of meat. And, we just sort of think like, if we could stop it, we would, we don't want this to happen. But from a higher level, if everything is consciousness, then our consciousness somehow is asking for that experience. Okay, so I'm going to take it back to me, because I'm not going to explain away everybody else's experience, because it's just, it's not mine. It's not my experience, and also all I can do is just work it in from, where I'm coming from. So I began this journey after, causing another little girl to suffer, and I thought, I don't want people to suffer, and I ended up suffering. And so, you'd wonder like, well, why, if I said I don't want this, then why did it happen? Why did I end up suffering? And it's because if you don't want something, you're going to need the actual dualistic opposite, because the only way you're going to change, like you say to yourself, I don't want to suffer. If people make that choice, I don't want to suffer, then you need to actually experience the suffering in order to work out how to not, how to unchoose that experience and work your way through it. Okay, it's not going to work any other way. You actually need to sort of move, you need to go into it to move to the other side. And so from the perspective of, an avatar perspective, where, I came to the earth from another planet. There's many people who've done it, and we don't want people to suffer. And we expect that it all should just stop somehow. But, and then all of a sudden, we end up suffering ourselves too, and, and have to follow, end up following exactly the same path as everyone else. We go into separation, we experience suffering, we experience all of it. and we feel like we failed because because that happened. But the thing is, the only way we're going to help people to not suffer is to actually suffer and experience what that's like. No one can change the experience of suffering but the person who is experiencing suffering, because everything is an experience. So you can't just magically change it from the outside. Like, someone can't do it for you. No one can save you. We can only save ourselves. It's the only way. No one can come in from the outside and change our minds. We need to want that, So we can only do it from the inside. And we reach up, and the only place we're going to find our way out of it is to reach up for the beings, the ascended masters, who have already transcended all of that, and they can see the way out, and they're the ones who are going to help us to get out of this. We can't do it with our own minds, because we're living in this elusive, unreal world where, it just sort of, everything sort of appears almost like opposite to what we expect it to be, and but everything will sort of comes more into harmony the more you realize, like, it's just about shifting the way I'm experiencing the world. It's shifting the way I'm looking at it. And if something like a negative experience, something that we experience in a negative way, like some kind of tension or pressure, is coming to us, then it's just like, if you can I'm just learning to accept, okay, like, somehow I'm choosing this experience, so what do I have to learn from this experience? How can I shift my perspective of it? How can I shift the way I experience this? And that's where the golden keys come along, and it doesn't necessarily come instantly, but it comes with, just asking above, like, can you help me with this? And just releasing some of that energy through invocations and, getting out into nature and bushwalking, like, just lots of different energy moving activities, like just move that energy out, and then just wait for the golden gems to come from above, like, that will help us to sort of transcend what's blocking us. Okay, this may sound like a whole bunch of gobbledygook, but it totally sort of, it's a bit of a breakthrough for me. So thank you for listening, and yeah, it may or may not resonate. Okay, see ya.